Hello and welcome. We have had a bunch of awesome looking games released here in 2021, and in this video I'm gonna rank my top 6 games from the year. Now as always, this is just my personal ranking, and I have not had the time, or money for that matter, to play every single game released. There are a ton of awesome looking games that I have missed, but also a couple of games that I bought but just did not have the time to finish or play that much of. I'm not going to be including remasters or re-releases, since I think those games has had their time to shine. With that being said, I think we should start this list off with an honorable mention. Deathloop! I got Deathloop here in December, and with the advent calendar videos and general Christmas busyness, I have not had much time to play it, so don't feel comfortable putting this on my list. But I will say I am happy to be wrong about this game. When it was first shown off, I was a little put off by the whole Groundhog Day inspiration, mainly because I'm not a big fan of roguelike games, but Deathloop does it in the best way possible, where even if you die, there's a big chance you've forgotten some information or points you can infuse in your gear that will be helpful for the next loop. The game has some of the most satisfying gunplay I've felt in a while, and with the haptic feedback from the PS5 controller, it will feel even more satisfying. Now, while I really like this game from what little I have played, I still think if I was to include it on my list, it would be around the middle part of it. I know it's probably going to be a lot of people's number one game, but there are just a couple of games that I highly doubt it would be able to surpass. Alright, let's start with the real list. Number 6. The Dark Pictures Anthology House of Ashes. The next installment in the Dark Pictures Anthology has these past couple of years been something I was excited for. Granted, none of the games really lived up till Until Dawn, which was the first game the developers made in this style. But House of Ashes comes really close. In this game you play as a small group of American soldiers during the Iraq War. While on a mission they fall into a sinkhole that takes them to an underground cavern where they find the ruins of a long lost city. But they are not alone down there. They are being stalked by some vicious creatures, and I don't really want to say anything more. Trust me, it takes some crazy turns and would be a disservice to spoil any of it. It is one of the best looking games I have played on the PS5. Seriously, the light and everything just looks awesome. The weakest thing about the game is probably the characters themselves. They are incredibly unlikable, except for Salim. Salim is my boy. I cannot recommend it enough. If you have played the previous installments and was a little disappointed and skipped this one, do yourself a favor and give it a chance. Number 5. The Medium. In The Medium, you play as Marianne, a young woman with the ability to communicate with the dead. After receiving a mysterious phone call compelling her to find the origin of her powers and herself, she sets off to an old abandoned vacation resort in the middle of nowhere. While there, she will help the spirits trapped to move on and for all cost avoid something evil lurking at the resort. Holy crap, this was such a unique experience. Very interesting visually and a compelling story. The Medium will stay with you for a while. With Marianne's powers you can enter the spirit world either fully or only partly, and the latter makes the screen split in two, where you control Marianne in both worlds at the same time. And that sets up a few interesting puzzles, where something will block your path in one of the worlds and you need to find a way around it. I will say the game can feel a little slow at times, there's a lot of walking around and not all the puzzles are that fun. But I was still hooked and very much looking forward to a sequel should that ever come. Number 4. Guardians of the Galaxy. When they first showed the reveal trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy, I was so hyped. When they later showed the gameplay of the game and said you could only play as Star-Lord, I lost all interest. But yet, here it is at the number 4 spot of my list. This game was awesome, the story and writing are amazing, and the star of the game, I loved hearing the banter between the Guardians, and rarely has a game made me laugh as much as this one. Combat felt a lot better than it looked, and it can be fun, but it does drag on quite a bit. Combat is the thing you're doing the most in the game, and some of the combat section lasts for way too long. But there are breaks where you can do some simple platforming and use your comrade's ability to traverse the environment. You also get to see some iconic places and characters throughout the game that will make a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy fans happy. All in all, this is an amazing sci-fi adventure game. Number 3. Psychonauts 2. Psychonauts 2 is the sequel we never thought was gonna happen, and to come out and be as good as it is just shows that anything can be possible. It is a wonderful platformer where you get to use the psychic abilities of the main character, Rasputin. You can dive into the mind space of different characters throughout the game, and there you will explore some very wonderfully original and colorful levels. The soundtrack is great and it fits the weird vibe and characters of the game. The story is very good and will probably entertain all ages. But it would be a good idea to have played the original Psychonaut and the VR game, since this game is a direct sequel to those games. The combat has been improved quite a bit from the previous game, but in my opinion could still use some tweaks. The combat is good, but not great. I don't really have much bad to say about this game, except for when I played this at release, it did crash quite often for me. Not Bethesda levels of often, but still enough to get quite annoying. But I presume that the game has become more stable by now. Psychonauts 2 is definitely a worthy sequel and worth the wait. And it might even open up the possibilities for a sequel to Brutal Legend one day. Number 2. Resident Evil Village. In Resident Evil Village you continue to play as the main character from the previous game, Ethan. Now married to his girlfriend and with a young daughter, he's living the life in Europe. Until shit hits the fan. His wife gets killed and his daughter is taken away, and now he's doing everything he can to get her back. In a big ass roller coaster that includes tall sexy vampire lady, werewolves, creepy dolls, and whatever this thing is. Ew. Village is such a crazy game and I enjoyed every moment. It is very similar mechanics wise to Resident Evil 7, but there are some more fun weapons, cooler environments, and the enemies are also significantly more interesting in their design. The game is a little more liberal with the amount of ammunition you can find throughout, but on higher difficulties it will definitely make you choose your battles with care. Another thing I feel like is worth mentioning is that this game ran like a charm. Not a single crash, bug or weird glitch. The worst thing that comes to mind is probably that one of the enemies did a crazy ragdoll effect after I killed him, but I think that only happened once or twice in my playthrough. It is kinda unfortunate that we live in a world where the fact that a game is running as intended is praiseworthy, but oh well. Resident Evil Village is also among very few games that as soon as I beaten it I started it all over again. That happens very rarely for me, and I just wish I had more time to just keep on playing it. And now is the time to reveal my number 1 game from 2021, and for anyone who knows me that's not gonna be a hard guess. Number 1! Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Again, when they first showed the trailer for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I was not that impressed. I was sure it's gonna be a good game, but I was not ready for it to be such an amazing game and one of the best in the franchise. This is a must-buy if you have a PS5. It is basically the same style as previous games, a fun platformer with some seriously crazy guns. But more has been added, like the new dash move that you can use in combat to avoid enemy attacks and wall running. Even though those things might seem small, it does give a feel of fresh air. The planets you visit feel very different from each other and offers a lot of variety both visually and in the playstyle. The game also introduces a new playable character, Rivet, whom when they first showed her off I was afraid she was pushed upon the game to please a certain demographic, but I grew to like her quite a lot throughout the game. She plays exactly the same as Ratchet, and the experience and money you gain are transferred between the characters, so you don't feel like you're forced to play someone who are lesser than the other. It is purely to tell a good story that they introduced her, and the story is great and has a lot more depth than previous games in the franchise. What else can I say? The combat has probably never felt this good before, especially with the haptic feedback on the PS5 controller that adds a new level of immersion and helps makes each gun feel different. And of course, being on the PS5, the iconic duo has never looked better. And that was my list for this year. We had quite a few amazing games released, and 2022 looks like it has potential to be way better. I know there were a lot of games that were originally set to come out this year that have been pushed to next year, maybe due to the whole coronavirus complicating things, or maybe big game companies are slowly starting to learn to release game in a more finished state instead of a buggy mess. Or even better, giving the developers enough time to make a game without too much crunch. Probably not though. And who knows, there might be a lot of games that get pushed even further into 2023. In the state the world is in, that can be very hard to predict, but I think we should all just be patient. Hopefully the delays are there to make sure that the game can live up to its full potential. So this is gonna be my last video of the year. 2021 was a little better than 2020. Hopefully 2022 will be the great year we all been waiting for, where everything just goes right. But kinda doubt that. If you've been sticking through the bad English, you're a real hero. Thanks for watching and have a happy new year.